In 1943, IBM punch card machines were operating inside Auschwitz, tracking arrivals, sorting prisoners, scheduling death. In 2007, Blackwater security contractors opened fire in Nisour Square, Baghdad, killing 17 Iraqi civilians, including children. IBM faced zero charges. Blackwater. Rebranded, restructured, still winning government contracts, still making money. This isn't justice. This is the system. The corporate immunity system, where corporations enable war crimes. Blame it on someone else. Rebrand. And walk away richer than ever. Let me put that in perspective. IBM helped the Nazis manage genocide and became a Cold War tech giant. Blackwater committed a massacre and got pardons, profits, and private equity backing. 2 companies, 2 wars, same outcome. This isn't about one CEO or one decision. It's a repeatable mechanism. A system built to protect profit, not people. Stage 1, provide critical support. Stage 2, get exposed. Stage 3, blame the bad apples. Stage 4, rebrand and return to business. We'll follow IBM and Blackwater through all 4 stages decades apart, but nearly identical. This isn't conspiracy. It's contract law, lobbying, loopholes, public record. And once you see how the corporate immunity system works, you'll start seeing it everywhere. IBM didn't start in war. It started in numbers. In 1911, a small company called CTR Computing Tabulating Recording was founded to process payrolls, census forms, and time cards. In 1924, it was rebranded as International Business Machines. IBM under Thomas J. Watson, it became a data empire. By the 1930s, IBM controlled the machinery of information, punch card systems that sorted, categorized, and analyzed anything measurable: population, ethnicity, religion, production. Meanwhile, 70 years later, in 1997, another kind of company emerged. A private military firm founded by a former Navy SEAL named Eric Prince. Its name? Blackwater. Its purpose? Training, protection, and private security for U.S. government personnel. After 9/11s, Blackwater became a go-to contractor in America's war on terror. 2 companies, different eras, different tools. But the same instinct: serve power, build what the state needs, stay close to the action, but outside accountability. IBM built the machinery for identifying enemies of the Reich. Blackwater provided armed men to escort diplomats and defend CIA outposts in Baghdad. One turned genocide into logistics. The other turned war into a service industry, but neither were rogue operators. They were official vendors. IBM worked with Nazi ministries. Blackwater signed billion-dollar contracts with the U.S. State Department, and the money flowed. By the late 1930s, IBM's German operations were expanding across occupied Europe. By the early 2000s, Blackwater was growing faster than the U.S. Army's own capabilities in Iraq. The products were different: punch cards versus rifles. But the logic was the same: if there's a government budget and a war to support, build the service that war requires. This is where the immunity system begins. Stage 1, become essential. Stage 2. That's when things go public. Stage 1 of the corporate immunity system is always the same: provide critical support. Not optional, not peripheral, essential. Let's start with IBM. In 1933, the Nazi Party came to power. One of their first priorities was a national census, not just names and addresses but religion, ethnicity, ancestry. Who was Jewish, who wasn't, who had one Jewish grandparent, and who needed to be removed from German society. IBM's German subsidiary, Die Homag, was approached by Nazi officials. The question wasn't, can your machines help? It was, how fast can you build more? The answer: very fast. With oversight from New York, IBM expanded Die Homag operations and began customizing punch card systems for racial categorization. This wasn't generic data processing. These were tailor-made tools for repression. Die Homag technicians installed and serviced punch card machines in Nazi ministries, in ghettos, in occupied Poland, in camps. And always with IBM serial numbers, IBM service contracts, IBM codebooks. Now jump to 2003. The U.S. invades Iraq, chaos follows. The military is stretched thin, and suddenly, The State Department and CIA need private contractors to fill the gaps. Enter Blackwater. Blackwater was awarded a $1 billion contract to provide armed protection for American personnel. Its guards escorted convoys, defended embassy compounds, and ran missions in Baghdad's red zones. Their client? The United States government. These weren't mercenaries acting on their own. These were state-sanctioned security forces hired to do what the U.S. military couldn't. At their peak, Blackwater had more contractors in Iraq than some NATO countries had soldiers. And they operated with legal immunity under a U.S. executive order. No accountability to Iraqi courts. No clear oversight from the Pentagon. So what do these two companies have in common? They made themselves indispensable to wartime operations. IBM streamlined the Nazi regime's ability to identify, categorize, and deport millions. Blackwater allowed U.S. officials to move through a war zone without deploying more troops. Neither dropped bombs, neither passed laws, but both made violence scalable, because that's how Stage 1 works. You don't have to pull the trigger. You just make sure the system runs smoothly. Stage 2 of the corporate immunity system is exposure. This is the moment when the truth comes out, the press reports it, the evidence piles up, the world sees what happened, and for a moment it looks like there might be consequences. IBM's exposure came in waves. Survivors told stories of strange machines in the camps. Technicians appeared at ghettos. Historians dug into archives, but it wasn't until 2001, over 50 years later, that the full picture exploded into public view. Edwin Black's book, IBM and the Holocaust, revealed the depth of IBM's involvement. He cited service logs, internal memos, and U.S. intelligence documents. The conclusion: IBM knew what it was doing, and did it anyway. The machines used in Auschwitz weren't stolen. They were leased, serviced, cataloged, with permission from headquarters in New York. Meanwhile, Blackwater's exposure happened in real time. On September 16, 2007, Blackwater contractors opened fire in Nisour Square, Baghdad. They claimed self-defense. Witnesses said otherwise. 17 Iraqi civilians were killed, including 2 children. The FBI investigated their report. The victims posed no threat. The contractors initiated the shooting. News broke across the world. Congressional hearings followed. The Iraqi government demanded justice, but Blackwater's CEO Eric Prince told Congress his men were heroes, that they'd been scapegoated, that the company had done nothing wrong. In both cases, the facts were out. The companies had been caught. IBM's machines enabled genocide. Blackwater's guns massacred civilians. And for a brief moment, the headlines were brutal. Public outrage was high. Politicians asked questions. Committees formed. But exposure in this system doesn't mean accountability. Because that's not how the immunity mechanism works. The next move is already in play. When the cameras turn on, the corporations don't apologize. They redirect. The blame gets shifted. The language changes. And then comes Stage 3. Find someone to throw under the bus. Stage 3 is where the escape begins. The company doesn't deny what happened. It just decides who should take the fall. With IBM, the scapegoat was its German subsidiary De Homag. After the war, when questions surfaced, IBM insisted it had no control over what happened in Nazi Germany. It was just a supplier. De Homag acted independently. Headquarters in New York? Completely unaware. But the service logs told a different story. Memos sent to New York. Technicians dispatched from New York. Payments received in New York. The Holocaust was calculated in punch cards, and those cards were printed by a company collecting American profits the entire time. No matter. IBM's executives faced no prosecution. The company positioned itself as just another cog in a machine. It claimed not to understand. Now look at Blackwater. After the Nisour Square massacre, the company denied responsibility. Then 4 individual guards were charged. They were prosecuted in the U.S. courts, found guilty, sentenced. But in 2020, President Trump pardoned all 4, and Eric Prince, the man who built Blackwater, who profited from every contract and every deployment, never charged, never investigated. Today, he's still active in the global security world, still rich, still connected. Just like IBM, Blackwater blamed rogue operators, said it wasn't company policy, said those who pulled the trigger were the problem, not the corporation that trained, armed, and deployed them. This is the playbook. Find low-level employees, call it a mistake, a tragedy, an unfortunate exception. Then cut the branch to save the tree, because once the scapegoats are named and the spotlight moves on, the real work begins. Stage 4 is where the system shows its brilliance, because it doesn't just protect the company, it helps it grow. Let me show you how. Stage 4 is where the system completes itself. The company doesn't hide, it doesn't collapse, it just changes names and keeps going. Let's start with IBM. After the war, there was no trial, no apology, no fine. IBM simply pivoted. By 1950, it was building mainframes for the US military. By the 60s, it was working with NASA, the Holocaust. Quietly omitted from the company's public history, dehomag, dissolved, forgotten, IBM became a Cold War hero, a space race champion, an all-American tech giant. The company that built data systems for genocide was now selling computers to the Pentagon. Now look at Blackwater. After the Nisour Square massacre, the brand was toxic. The headlines wouldn't go away. So in 2009, they did what the immunity system teaches. They rebranded. Blackwater became Z Services. Then later, Academy. Then they merged with other contractors too. Form Constellis. Same leadership, same business model, same contracts, just a new name, and guess what? The contracts kept coming. The US government still needed armed security in war zones, and Blackwater, Academy was still on the short list. Rebranding doesn't mean reform, it just means public relations caught up with the damage, and in both cases it worked. IBM erased its Nazi ties. Blackwater buried its massacre behind corporate mergers and name changes. Within 5 years of their respective exposures, both companies had repositioned themselves as vital to national security. Not only were they forgiven, they were rewarded. This is how the system operates, not through cover-ups, but through conversions. War crimes become footnotes. Reputation is reset. And the company walks back through the front door cleaner, bigger, and more profitable. Let me show you just how profitable. Let's talk numbers, because the immunity system doesn't just protect reputation, it restores revenue. IBM's post-war growth wasn't just steady, it was explosive. By the 1950s, IBM had landed major US government contracts. It built systems for the Air Force, for defense logistics, for intelligence agencies. By the 1960s, it was the backbone of NASA's Apollo missions. Its stock price soared. By the 1970s, IBM was the most valuable tech company in the world. There were no reparations, no restitution, just exponential growth. The same pattern played out with Blackwater, just faster, after the Nisour Square massacre. In 2007, you might expect the company to go bankrupt. But between 2008 and 2013, Blackwater, now operating as Z, then Academy, continued to receive hundreds of millions in US government contracts. When it re-emerged as part of Constellis, it absorbed other security firms like Triple Canopy and continued doing business with the Pentagon and State Department. Exact revenues are private, but investigative reports estimate Constellis earned over $1 billion annually in the years following Blackwater's collapse. So let's recap. IBM made machines for genocide, then made billions in the Cold War. Blackwater massacred civilians, then restructured and kept profiting from war. The punishment: a name change, a press release, and more contracts. That's the corporate immunity system in action. Let me show you who helped make it possible. So who protected them? The answer is simple. The state. IBM was too useful to punish. After World War II, the US government needed computing power for logistics, nuclear research, and espionage. IBM had the machines. IBM had the patents. IBM had the technicians. Prosecuting them for collaborating with the Nazis would have crippled America's post-war tech race. So the government looked the other way. Declassified memos from the State Department reveal the strategy. One note read, quote, IBM's wartime activities remain of concern, but pursuit of legal action is not advised at this time. Translation: let's not blow up our own infrastructure. Blackwater followed the same arc. After the massacre in Nisour Square, the US government faced international outrage. But they still needed boots on the ground. The military was overextended. Diplomats needed protection. Blackwater, now Z, now Academy, still had the network, the gear, the men. And behind the company stood powerful friends. Eric Prince had connections deep in the Pentagon, the CIA, and the White House. His sister was Secretary of Education. His allies were defense insiders. No accountability, no shutdown, just a shuffle. That's how the immunity system survives. Because when you serve power directly, power protects you. Let's look at where these companies stand today. Fast forward to today. IBM is worth over $100 billion. It operates in more than 170 countries. It's a contractor for U.S. defense, intelligence, and surveillance programs. It supplies cloud infrastructure to governments and biometric software to police departments. You've probably used IBM tech without even knowing it at the bank, the airport, the hospital. The company that once built the database for genocide now builds databases for everything else, and Blackwater. It never really died. It lives on as part of Constellis, a conglomerate of private military firms that includes Academy, Triple Canopy, and more. Constellis still wins contracts with the U.S. government, still trains personnel, still operates in global conflict zones, Afghanistan, Africa. Latin America, its revenue? Estimated at over $1 billion per year. No IPO, no public stock ticker. Just private ownership, private deals, and public money. The company that opened fire on civilians in Baghdad now teaches tactical training to federal agents, and the profits haven't stopped. IBM's biggest shareholders today: BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. The same firms that dominate every major retirement fund in the US if you have a 401k. You likely own a slice of IBM and the Constellis Group, held by private equity. The same financial elite that bankrolls every defense conference, every security summit, every war that never really ends. This isn't history. This is right now. Let's make this personal. You might think IBM is just a tech relic, or that Blackwater is long gone. But if you have a retirement account, if you invest through a mutual fund or a 401k, chances are you're part of the system. IBM's largest shareholders are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Together, they control more than 20% of the company. They vote on board members. They influence executive pay. They shape the company's future. And where do they get that power? From you, your retirement money, your passive investment, your employer's default plan. You're not evil. You're not even complicit on purpose. That's what makes the system so effective. It hides behind layers of finance, of branding, of time, and Blackwater through Constellis is even harder to trace. It's privately held. Backed by firms that rarely show their faces, but they're connected to the same world: private equity, political influence, security state contracts. The result: two companies with deep histories of involvement in war crimes, now quietly embedded in the infrastructure of your life, your cloud provider, your military spending, your savings portfolio. This is how the corporate immunity system stays invisible. It doesn't just protect the companies, it recruits the public. And by the time you realize you're involved, it's already too late. Let's break down the full mechanism. Now that you've seen it play out, let's name it. This is the corporate immunity system. It's not a secret plan. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a repeatable business model. Here's how it works. Step 1. A company provides something essential to a violent system. That could be tech, weapons, logistics, or personnel. Step 2. At some point, the truth comes out. Reporters dig. Whistleblowers speak. Victims testify. The world sees what happened. Step 3. The company blames individuals. A few people are fired, maybe even jailed, but the corporation, it survives. Step 4. The company rebrands, restructures, hires PR firms, merges, and returns cleaner, richer, and more protected. The state doesn't punish it. The market forgets. And the public, unless they're paying close attention, moves on. This system has been used by companies across history. IBM, Blackwater, Halliburton, Union Carbide, Exxon. The specifics change. The result stays the same: profit from violence. Shift the blame, keep the money. And if done well, the company doesn't just survive, it grows. Because in the end, the system isn't built to prevent abuse. It's built to absorb it. Let me show you why it works so well. Here's why the corporate immunity system works. First, these companies provide services the government can't or won't do itself, that gives them leverage. IBM handled data processing when the US government was still pushing paper. Blackwater filled battlefield roles when the military was overstretched. Second, the system protects itself legally. Contracts are vague, jurisdictions are muddled. Crimes happen in war zones, across borders, under immunity clauses. Third, there's political insulation. These companies employ veterans. They lobby aggressively. They promise efficiency and security. Prosecuting them risks jobs, headlines, and political fallout. Fourth, rebranding works. The public forgets fast. Change the name. Sell a new product. Wait 6 months. The outrage fades. And finally, there's no incentive to change, because the penalties are negligible, and the rewards. Massive. Blackwater lost public trust, but kept government business. IBM facilitated genocide, but became a Cold War hero, and your money through retirement accounts and defense budgets keeps the system running. That's why this isn't just a corporate problem, it's a structural one. The immunity system exists because governments depend on it, because markets reward it, and because the public doesn't even know it's there, until now. So what do you do with that knowledge? So what do you do with this? I'm not telling you to dump your retirement portfolio, or never touch IBM, or track down Constellis executives. That's not the point. The point is this: now you know. Now you see the pattern. You see how companies can aid in atrocities, then rebrand, restructure, and return richer than ever. You see how governments look the other way, how shareholders still profit, how you, without knowing, might be part of it. This doesn't mean you're guilty. It means you're inside the system. We all are, and that's what makes it so effective. Because the corporate immunity system isn't built on secrecy. It's built on silence, delay, forgetfulness. But you don't have to forget. You can ask what companies your retirement fund holds. You can question who gets government contracts. You can stop assuming that name changes equal justice, because history doesn't just repeat, it reinvents. And unless we recognize the mechanism we're going to fund it again. If this video helped you recognize the system, here's what you can do. First, leave a comment. Should companies that rebrand after war crimes be banned from future government contracts? Yes. No? What's the line? Second, share this with someone in tech or defense or finance. Someone who might not realize they're inside the immunity system too. And third, check the description. Every source used here is public, declassified, on record. No conspiracy, just documents. Now, if you thought IBM and Blackwater were shocking, next week I'm covering Boeing. They built bombers for Nazi Germany, then became America's #1 defense contractor. They got caught falsifying safety records twice and still got billions in Pentagon deals. Same system. Different industry. No accountability. This is a series about the patterns behind the power, because when corporations help commit atrocities and walk away richer, that's not just history, that's a feature of the system, and we have to name it, trace it, break it, because the next company that commits the next crime has already hired the same lawyers, already drafted the same denial, already picked the name for its next rebrand. History doesn't repeat, but systems do, and the corporate immunity system never stops. I'll see you in the next one.